Welcome to the Unlock Your Culture webcast, a monthly discussion about preserving traditional fire service culture in the modern setting. With your hosts, Sean Duffy, Pablo Jenner, John Hayowick, and Mark Alone. We hope you enjoy the show. All right, welcome everybody to episode 10 of the Unlock Your Culture webcast. We are here against all odds. June has been a crazy month for everybody, I think, and so we're going to make this one happen. So we have Dave. I'm going to slaughter your name. See, I do this every time. Dave, tell us your name.
Dave Dureiko.
Dave Dureiko, and he is from Ohio, yes?
That's correct.
All right. Dave and I crossed paths through the amazing intertwined interwebs of Facebook and the fire service. And he has blessed me with an opportunity to go speak at a fire conference that he is putting on. So I wanted to have him on our webcast tonight, get him a little information about him, and kind of let him sell his conference to us and talk about the cultural implications that led to him wanting to host it, how he got there, and what we hope to accomplish with it. So we're lucky tonight. I got both Pablo and John here together with me now, and Sean is going to try to make a stop here, I think, if he can get on. So without further ado, we're going to let Dave kind of take over. Dave, as much or as little as you want to share about yourself, your area, what you can share, what you leave out whatever you can't, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm Dave Dureiko. I'm from Northeast Ohio. I like a couple of your previous guests that you had, Mike Bernard being, I think, one of the more recent ones. I'm literally just a nobody from nowhere. I'm the average firefighter. I'm young, passionate, and just want to try to not make a name for myself, but do something productive and positive for the fire service, especially the area that I'm in. So I work for Munson Township Fire Department. It's in Geauga County, Ohio, which is a pretty rural county. But Munson itself, the township, is 20 square miles. We have a pretty wealthy population of elderly and younger couples that have done well for themselves within college and their work. We do have some lower income homes, but very few and far between. Pretty much just a lot of big McMansions. We're small in stature. We're a combination department of full-time guys and part-time guys. We have 12 full-timers right now, a part-time fire chief, a combination shift captain / assistant chief, and then about 20 some part-timers that supplement the roster. We run 4-man minimums. We are a EMS station as well, so we do EMS transports, and that's pretty much all of Northeast Ohio and almost all of the populated areas of Ohio. So you got the Cleveland metro areas and suburbs of Northeast Ohio, then you got Central Ohio around Columbus, and then down by Cincinnati, and then all the outlying areas are more of your rural volunteer places. But for the most part, most departments in Northeast Ohio all run ambulance, they all transport, and I think a lot of places across the country can relate. But with that being said, we do roughly around 1,200 calls a year, which is not bad at all. I came from a pretty urban fire department in Northeast Ohio speaking. We did 17,000 calls a year out of 5 stations. And so it was a little bit of a culture shock coming to a place that is as slow as Munson. But we have a pretty awesome culture there. A lot of young kids are part of the department now and really want to try to make an impact. So their voices are being heard. They're getting involved, which is awesome to see. We have a very supportive fire chief. As few and many times as him and I can butt heads. He is extremely supportive of the department. He wants to see it be the best place it possibly can be. And yeah, it's a cool place to work. We don't get a whole lot of fire anymore, especially compared to where I was at. I don't see a whole lot of fire anymore, but when we do, they're usually rocking. So you got to be on your A game, and it holds you over for the 6 months to year that you might go without having a fire. So that's all about me, I guess. I don't like to labor on about.
Nobody likes to brag.
Yeah.
But David, so when the fires in the McMansions, just talking to you real quick. So obviously class 5s, wood frames, a lot of truss stuff that you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So knowing your area and districts, how do you guys do with water? You guys able to have hydrants, or are you guys bringing it?
We're bringing it most of the time. We have very few pressurized hydrants, and the ones that we do have, they are privately maintained, and they're part of an actual complex. So we've got 3 complexes that have pressurized hydrants. There's the Geauga County Sheriff's Office and county buildings where the county prosecutor's at, the hospital. That's all on a private system off of a water tower and a fire pump. Then we have another nursing home facility in YMCA that all share the same privatized pressurized hydrants. And then a second nursing home complex that all has a privatized hydrant system. Other than that, dry hydrants and tankers, which is different because where I came from, guys didn't even know what dry hydrants were, let alone, talking about drafting or tankers, or tenders. I know people got different names. Out my way, they're called tankers. I know out west they're called tenders, but yeah, that we're hauling water.
So, all right. So I'm from a small city just outside New York City. So we have a ton of hydrants, and we're lucky with that. But bringing your own water is definitely is a whole nother elevation to the fire service. Trying to do a nurse tender, or you dump in pools and all that other stuff. So it's pretty crazy hearing about some career departments having to bring their own water and stuff. But it's definitely, that adds to the culture that you guys are bringing with you. So how did you come up with the conference idea? Mark was talking with us a little bit, side channels, and just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah. So I basically, long story short, and this is no bullshit, and it's not to be like cliche or anything, or like, wow, this is some miraculous thing, but I had came home from work. I had a pretty rough day, not call wise, but just some arguments and disagreements with some people, and was kind of beat down, and went to bed, and then legitimately had a dream of hosting a fire conference in Ohio to try to change the culture in my general area. I had already known about Oath Keepers, so it's not like Ohio is immune or neglected from fire conferences. Oath Keepers, sells out every single year for the last 5 years. Awesome thing, but that's in like northwestern Ohio or central North Ohio, and we have this little bubble that I've seen in my 10 years here that there's nothing in our general area. Like I had this dream. I was like, I'm done bitching about a shit culture in our area and not having training opportunities and guys not knowing that there's stuff outside of our little bubble. I'm going to do what I can to bring that here for the guys that may not know that there's stuff in other states or even in other portions of our own state, to try to maybe help heal that. So I had woke up from that dream and it was like clear as mud. I'm doing it. So 5 minutes later, after waking up from the dream, I start calling people. I got called up Cody Trust Trail, and it's like, hey, Cody, you mind coming, to this conference? I have no idea what I'm doing. No clue whatsoever, but I need to make something happen. It's as clear as mud in my head, and I'm not going to stop until it does. Called up, shot Mark up on Facebook, got a hold of him. Like, hey, Mark, I read your Facebook blog and your website, and I've been wanting to see you at either FDIC or Firehouse, and you mind coming here? And just kept going down the list, and then called up a venue that day, got them all squared away. Called up a local brewery, like, hey, listen, here's a crazy idea. You don't know who I am. I honestly have no clue what I'm doing, but do you want to host a social night for a 5-day fire conference here in Ohio? And it's just been snowballing. It's been very stressful, I can tell you that. I'm pretty notorious, and I think the guys that are listening today from my fire department, they'll tell you that a lot of the times I put the cart ahead of the horse, But that's been my life, and it's worked out so far. It can be difficult, but I'm always up for the challenge, and I always make things happen. So,
Dude, that's great. Just coming up with the idea and running with it. I definitely can understand that. I can see the passion, and I totally understand that. You said you were down at COBC, right?
correct.
I was too, and we may have bumped into each other down there. But the one quote that has stuck with me from throughout that conference is, "We're going to talk about problems once, and from then on, we're going to talk about solutions." And that's it seems like that's what you're doing. You've seen the problem, and now you found the solution, and you're running with it. How's the feedback from the guys? Are you getting a lot of help? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like how,
No,
there's
like,
certain guys that you have the go-tos all the time.
right, right. So, I want to be as politically correct as I say this.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry.
No. I like being honest, and I think that we need to have more honesty in the fire service instead of just like jumping around the problems and like addressing them. So, at no fault really to my fire department, I've received some support, but not the support that I would have anticipated or liked. Part of that being is, even though we're a career fire department, we are not part of the union, and we're a private fire department, and we're structured differently in the sense that we actually don't own the apparatus that we have. So the township that we are contracted by owns the apparatus. Now that's been a learning struggle for me, trying to figure out how does a private fire department work versus a municipal, fire department, and it's shook my brain. But after sitting down with them, I'm starting to understand, the administration started to understand a little bit more. They're trying to figure it out too. And so I couldn't get a lot of help this year from them, but they're working on maybe next year.
That's awesome.
I do have a core group of friends though, however, from municipal fire departments where I live that have been extremely supportive. I know that the guys at my department want to see this be as successful as possibly can, but from a logistics standpoint, they can't help out. I have received some criticism, and that goes back to the culture in this area. I've gotten quite a bit of flack for trying to do something from this, and a lot of it stems back from a previous department I was with, and a couple previous departments, and just hearing stuff, through the rumor mill of guys. But for the most part, guys have been pretty supportive. Just not seeing the turnout that I would have hoped for. When I started this, it was like, instead of maybe going for the base hit, I went for the grand slam, failing to realize that we have a broken culture here, and that especially when it comes to training in the fire service, EMS great, fire it's kind of put on the wayside. So when I started selecting guys who I thought would motivate the area, I almost sometimes fail to realize, hey, these guys from Ohio don't even know who Cody Trushtrail is, or Chief Scott Thompson, or Mark, Chris Tobin. Who else do we have coming? Chief Reinwald, Kyle Romagutz. They don't know these names because they've been so excluded from what's out there for so long that, like, well, I'm not going to sign up for a class like this.
So, and that's a good point. There's a lot of up and coming names in the fire service, and if people haven't been introduced, whether they're not following some of the basic stuff, what was out there years ago, there was Firehouse, Fire Engineering. That was, they owned everything. And now all these smaller conferences are popping up. So people are starting to make different names for themselves, starting different training companies and expanding. And that's just the initial part of the culture change. Starting to get that biography of who's coming down and why, what's their specialty, and how is it going to influence them and better them is a great thing. I was fortunate enough to meet Pablo down at the Orlando Fire Conference. It's got to be 6-7 years ago, right, Pablo?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
And ever since then, we clicked, and that's where these things come from. And maybe I'm not telling you what to do or how to do it, but just explaining that the brotherhood and the firemanship that go along with just getting down to the class, and then the class after the class is the better part sometimes. You know, you're doing live burns all day, and then boom, you're doing a tailboard talk and BS, and then now you know somebody that you have a connection with. Like, I'm up in Jersey, Pablo's in Florida, you know, and we've made friends from, you know, we got Sean Duffy, you know, and we're not dropping names, but, you know, we've got a lot of people that are just one step away from who we knew 12 hours before. We didn't even know them, and now we're in a class or teaching or whatever else.
Yeah.
So that's part of the that's huge, right? Pablo, you want to talk on that?
Oh, no, I agree with that. I think, you know, I think we tend to hate a lot on social media in general. And I'm one of the first to hate a lot on social media and just how bad it can be. But, you know, instead of doing that right now, focus on how good social media could be. You know, the truth of the matter is, you know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have known, you know, who Chief Haywick is, for example. You know, but I not only do I know him, but it's, you know, he's a friend of mine that we literally see each other and talk to each other, you know, on a regular basis. We exchange texts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, like him, I have a handful of people in my phone, in which now, Dave, you're going to be one of them too. You know, and it's just because of social media and because of this, you know, I think we tend to harp a lot on the bad side, but the truth of the matter is social media. I always say this little quote. I swear one day I'm going to fucking tattoo it on me. It's going to, you know, you can fake a lot of shit, but you can't fake passion. And, you know, even through social media, the truth of the matter is, you can sniff out someone when they're full of shit. It is what it is. You can't fool someone, you know, and they'll see right through what you're trying to sell them, you know, and most people don't like to buy bullshit. So, I love it. I love all this stuff. I just have a quick question for you on the conference, because you just said that you tried to hit a grand slam as opposed to a base hit, which, man, I love it. I'm all about, you know, hey, go big or go home. It is what it is. I love that enthusiasm. So my question is, you said you had 5 days. So starting off with a 5-day conference, brother, that is you know, for anybody that's ever put down, forget 5 days, whoever's put any class together for, you know, literally a 4-hour class is a logistical nightmare sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do. So 5 days, talk to me about how many classes you got worked out. Do you have any different sites, or is it all going to be on one campus, et cetera, et cetera? How many instructors you got coming in? How many students you got coming in? You got it capped off with something, or what's going on? That's a big undertaking, brother.
Yeah. So right now, I have 3 days of lectures and 2 days of hands-on classes. Now, I was inspired by that through one of the first bigger conferences I attended was Portland, you know, Cody Trustrell's conference out there, firemanship conference. And I saw how that was structured, and that was like a life-changing event for me. I flew out there with my wife. We landed with $20 in our pocket, and it even though it was stressful money-wise, it was the best experience of my life. And I came back to Ohio with such a high. I was like, you know, that was awesome. I need to start going to these things more. So the more conferences I started going to and seeing how successful and the 5-day conference was, well, for the guys that, you know, maybe aren't super bought into training, 5 days is like a mini vacation for them versus like 2 days that's for, you know, whatever class. That becomes more of work or inconvenience because it's 2 days out of a work week. It's harder to schedule. Where 5 days for the guys that, you know, for them, they after the 8 hours of lectures or 8 hours of hands-on training, they can go to the bar. They can, like in Florida, you go to hang out at the beach with your family if you bring them with you. So I thought that dynamic was pretty cool when I started going with this. So yeah, we're at 5 days, 3 days of lectures, 2 days of hands-on. We have 9 lecture speakers total coming in, split up between the 3 days. And then I have 6 hands-on classes. They repeat themselves both days, but they cover, you know, anything from auto extrication, engine company operations, truck company operations, RIT, water supply and pump operations. Because that's huge out my way. I really wanted to cater towards, you know, maybe the volunteer fire departments that don't get the pumping training as much as they can. And that's why I try to create a price point from a, you know, admission point to cater to the departments that don't have the big budgets, you know, to send people to. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to donate every penny to charity.
That's great. And I like your setup of the HOTS repeating themselves. So somebody that wanted to do one of the classes and doesn't miss out on it. They're able to try and make it up on that second day.
Yeah, I like that.
Which is huge. I would say 5 days is a huge undertaking. A lot of the smaller conferences that I've gone to and been part of and attended, it's normally 3 days or maybe 4 days. 5 days, man. Good job.
That's large. Yeah.
It's huge, dude.
Yeah, I'm trying and I appreciate it. It's definitely been a nightmare. A lot of learning experiences, a lot of phone calls with people. They have told me like, yeah, should have gone smaller, but we'll support you. We're gonna make this thing work. But so I have a multitude of hands-on site locations. It's not all on one campus. The city of Stowe Fire Department and the city of Kent Fire Department have been extremely supportive. So they've donated acquired structures. We've got working on an abandoned elementary school for the class. We've got quite a few houses that we're able to use. Actually, out in Munson, this is going to be like a plan B. If one facility falls through, I have a ton of vacant office commercial buildings that we can use. There's another logistical nightmare. I'm 45 minutes away from Kent in Munson, so shuttling people, that's been a thing that I didn't even think about. I've got quite a few people, over a dozen people coming from out of state to this, so trying to shuttle them from the hotels to the hot sites wasn't something I was thinking about right off the rip, but we've got that squared away. But yeah, it's pretty interesting process, a lot of stress, but yeah, just gonna keep chugging forward, and thankfully I do have some really great support, and it's really awesome to see that, because I honestly didn't think I was gonna get a whole lot going into this, and I thought I was gonna be me by myself, based off of past experiences, but it's pretty cool to see that I'm not alone.
Fantastic. Matt, I got a question for you. I was listening to your response area and what you cover, and well, what's so if it's a decently rural area with big mansions like that, you said 20 square miles, you said roughly?
Yeah.
So what's the first alarm assignment looking like? I'm curious on that.
So we just changed it.
And how many people are showing up on the apparatuses?
Right. So that's a unique thing. So our department, we're staffed with four guys, 4 firefighter paramedics, or two. We have to have a minimum of 2 medics. Not that matters for a fire, but we're showing up with 4. Now my area is pretty blue card. I don't know if you know anything about blue card command.
Very familiar.
Yeah, it's very blue card heavy. So with our 4 guys, we're responding with 3 apparatus. We respond with a command car with the officer for the day. We respond with an engine with 2, and that engine has 1,000 gallons of water. And then we respond with an ambulance as well. That's kind of the department policy right now. There's a lot of conversation about that, because between, do we take the tanker with more water, or do we take the ambulance? Do we need the ambulance in case one of us gets hurt? So we're like, well, we made an engine, or an ALS engine. So there's a lot of conversation going on behind the scenes with that.
So the ambulance responds with 1 then?
Yeah, with 1, and then they'll jump off. We carry air packs on our ambulances and hand tools, so they'll jump off and be the second man on the line.
Okay.
So we've got that. The other departments that come, they're either going to send an engine or a tanker. Most tankers in the county that are showing up are carrying about 2,000 gallons of water. Engines carry about 1,000, 750 to 1,000. So it's depending on where. If it's a residential area that's non-hydrant, which is most, we're gonna get, like, right now we just changed our Mavis alarms. I think we're up to 3 engines and 4 tankers. It's 3 engines and 3 tankers. The 1 is in the mix because it's a volunteer department. All the other departments are staffed. So unless they're on an EMS run, we're almost guaranteed to get them. And those departments are primarily only sending 2 guys. So they're not dumping their stations. The whole county being rural, there's not a lot of staffing. You're not getting a station that's staffed with 10 guys. with a dedicated engine, truck, and squad. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So, and they don't want to deplete the resources in their own community. So we're getting 14 guys, but of those 14, anywhere from 3 to 8 are going to be dedicated to just water. Because you might have a department that shows up with a tanker with 3 guys on it, 2 to 3 guys, if they're, 3 if they're lucky, but then they get assigned to the fill site at a dry hydrant where they're filling tankers to respond. So realistically, we're going to have our 4 and then maybe 5 to 8 guys on the first alarm. So from my experience there in the last 2.5 years, and from talking with guys, anything really big in any of these McMansions, it's going to like a second alarm where you're going to get an additional 3 engines and 3 tankers, or or a third alarm where you're getting more with that. So it's unique. It makes, when we do get a first due fire, it makes it a lot of fun, because it's a lot of hard work. That's for sure. So we're short, and being rural, the response times are a bit longer. So it's not like a city where you got a station stacked up on top of another station. They're only a mile away. You could have 10 minutes on scene by yourself before anybody shows up.
Yeah. No, and brother, I totally understand where you're getting from. And just to give you a little bit of background, so my department is very, very interesting. I could blindfold you and give you and put you in one part of my district, or in one battalion, excuse me, and then I could blindfold you and take you to another battalion. You're going to tell me that A, you're not in the same fire department, and B, you might not even be in the same part of Florida. Like, what the fuck is this? So I'll give you an example. We are 1,600 square miles, about 26 fire stations, 6 battalions. My firehouse is in an urbanized / suburbanized area. My firehouse has 11 guys coming out of there. We literally carry three rescues, or what we call ambulances, 3 ambulances, a little squad company coming out of there, and a quint, an aerial coming out. So that's my firehouse, with our second dude literally 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes away, because they're literally 5 miles up the road. But then if I blindfold you and I take you out to our second battalion, you're out in the Ocala National Forest, and same exact deal. They're just dumping 5 guys, 3 on an engine, 2 on an ambulance for that particular zone, and then their second dude is sitting about maybe 10 to 12 minutes away, because they're in another part of the National Forest, and this is all part of the same department. So it's just one of those, like we, in my zone, we probably are not taking a tanker, because we just have hydrants in the area, because it's just a suburbanized, an urbanized suburban area of the city here. But then up in our second battalion and our first battalion, hey, you got to drop a tanker. So depending on on where you are detailed to that day, you definitely have to throw some audibles. So, brother, I completely agree, and feel your pain at the same time.
So I want to jump in there real quick, Pablo, because I think culture-wise, that's very much a southeastern thing, because of the prevalence of county fire services, kind of below the Mid-Atlantic in the southeast, to where you're trying to cover an entire county with one fire department when there's so many different demographics within those counties. And so the conversation I've had, because I've obviously worked for departments like that before, is that most people don't move to a rural area with the expectation, a citizen with the expectation that they will have the same fire coverage that New York City has, right? They understand that they moved out there to be away from things, to have some peace and quiet, right? That services are probably not going to be there. And in many ways, it is like the roots of the volunteer service, right? There was no fire protection, so they started their own departments. And so I find it kind of, I don't know, I won't say humorous, I guess is a poor word, but I find it interesting how, when you're getting into a big service like that, like we have down here where it is a county, obviously the same citizens are paying the same tax, right? They're paying the same fee for fire protection. So there's that desire to give them all equal fire protection. But I don't know that that's fair, because when you look at the population density and the call volume and the fire frequency and stuff, I don't know that it's there. And so I would ask Dave this too, because, when I travel and I talk to people, especially from the rural areas, do you think that changes the mindset of the culture in your area, as far as whether they can be, I guess, quote unquote, aggressive, or Is it a little more timid because, oh, well, we got the water we got and it's not coming? Does it change your tactics? Are you seeing more like a VES oriented kind of mindset, or is it more of a, hey, we're defensive until we, we think we could go offensive kind of thing?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, ironic, but I'm not going to go into that because that's a pretty touchy subject right now.
Yeah, no, I don't mean like, I'm not trying to get you to.
No, you're fine. The VES stuff. I'll just say I had an argument with someone. They said that we probably shouldn't do VES training because they were fearful someone was going to fall off the 24-foot ladder during the training. So that was a thing. Like that's my argument back was that's a basic firefighter skill you got to cover to get certified. I mean, how are you supposed to get comfortable climbing a 24-foot ladder if you don't climb a 24-foot ladder?
Yeah, that's tough, bro.
Going back to what Mark was asking, and I think I'll throw that out there. So do you tend to see more aggressive firefighting and nozzle selection from those rural guys just because they know they've got to either knock it the heck out or else you're going to be there surrounding and drowning, waiting for the cavalry? Or do you get a mix of that? And that obviously that goes to culture, and that can change from shift to shift. Yes. I can totally understand that too.
To be completely honest with you, and this goes back to the reason why I'm one of the reasons why I'm doing this conference is the answer to that is no. I don't see an aggressive change, and I don't even see that in the career departments. I have a lot. It's not a career, but the city or metropolitan fire departments. Because we run so much EMS up this way, I think the culture has shifted. Honestly, from my perspective, in just my short 10 years, I've seen it change from like being good at being firemen and keeping up with the latest science and trends and understanding, water and how it comes out of a nozzle and proper GPM and the BTUs and heat release rates and just aggressive tactics, but and managing risks aggressively, to excuses being made that we can't do that anymore because 85% to 90% of what we do is EMS. And the guys that do show up and have that knowledge or that drive to like share that information that they've gotten, like, hey, maybe we should go to smoothbore nozzles, or maybe we should, instead of going to these 100 PSI fog nozzles, we go to low pressure fog nozzles because it's less reaction force and we can get the same GPM as a smoothbore nozzle. Maybe we can still be aggressive with two guys, and instead of, if we want to do the whole 2 in 2 out stuff, and that's what our department, falls back on, that's great. But maybe we could, hook the door frame and sweep with our hands when we pop that door and we want to spray water in. But now we've covered 12% of where victims are found. This is firefighter rescue survey showing that 6% or 12% of victims are found within 6 feet of an exterior door. That's not a super aggressive tactic in the grand scheme of things, but that can save quite a few lives. But guys don't do that, and they fall back on this excuse of EMS is what we do. We have short staffing, so we can't be aggressive. Who cares about that? All the fires we've gone to, nobody's gotten hurt. And it's just like excuse after excuse after excuse of not doing your job or trying to be good at it or furthering your education. So myself, I've caught in a lot of flack at the fire departments I've been at.
Get out of here.
Shut up. Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir tonight, my friend.
Get in line.
Yeah. And I forget that that's how probably most of the country is. But being young, it's like in my head, maybe I'm naive to it. Like, how can you not care about a job that is as cool as being a fireman is? I mean, how can you not want to learn and progress and be aggressive? I mean, and attend conferences and have the brotherhood. It's shocking to me.
So the one thing I'm loving the fact that you're bringing a 5-day conference to the table, is you don't know what you don't know. So just by enlightening or bringing people in and getting that word of mouth is going to be huge. I got a question. Are you an instructor?
I am. I teach with one of the local colleges right now. I'm the training coordinator on my fire department.
Okay.
I was kind of brought in. That was one of the big reasons. So I was kind of recruited to the department that I'm at currently because, you know, I had worked with the fire chief previously at another fire department. And when he took over, he was trying to build almost like what Chief Scott Thompson did with the Colony Fire Department. If you've read his book or talked with him, he's trying to, you know, build up his own fire department to what he expects for the public. And that I was blessed with the opportunity to present it, you know, with a training position there.
So
I'm still on shift, but
so you understand that sometimes you can't be a prophet in your own land, and sometimes bringing these outsiders in, right? The outside bigger names that they don't even know they're bigger names yet until they do a little research, pop up on Google, or, you know, figure out who are they listening to.
Yeah.
And then then it clicks. Then you start getting the aha, you know, hey, I got Mark, he's teaching this. Man, he's spot on with that. That's a great idea. We should try that. And again, just getting that sell and that momentum going, I think you got a great thing planned ahead for you.
Yeah, I was gonna go ahead, Dave.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Johnson is funny. I went to a rural department down here actually yesterday and taught my class for a friend who's doing very much the same thing you're trying to do up there with his county. And, you know, what I picked up over the years of traveling here and there is that I used to do a lot of big name drops of, you know, like, I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like, their first slide is, these are all the people that influenced me, right? And it's like, insert list of influential firefighters here. And in reality, the whole teaching and conference scene, once you get into it, you're like, how did I not have this in my life? But before that, it's a very small sliver of the fire service, and people, once you get involved in it, they forget that. But we did Firehouse World one year, LA, and I remember the guys ran a call there, like we were up in Hollywood just kind of checking out everything, and they ran a call. So we got talking to them, and, you know, hey, you know, what are you guys doing here? You're all firemen from out of town. And, oh, we're here for Firehouse World. Like, oh, that's here. You know, this is one of the biggest fire departments in the country, and they have one of the biggest conferences in the country in their backyard. And they had no clue about it. They literally didn't know. So I think sometimes some of us who are really ate up, we forget that the average fireman doesn't always know what's out there for them. And so obviously there's that resistance, right? And then the flip side, which kind of circles back to what you said earlier about, you know, the mentality about water supply and things like that, is what I find interesting now is that I've kind of taken a step back on social media on the personal side. So I just kind of do it through the page now. But if you watch some of the bigger names out there, they contradict themselves quite often. So if you're just a run-of-the-mill firefighter that's trying to get more involved, sometimes there's too much information right now. You don't know who to believe, because you'll have one guy saying, hey, you know, you always got to have a fire hydrant, or you always got a VES, or you always got to throw a ladder first. And the other one, who has a different set of experience, comes from a different area of the country, a different way, they're saying the complete opposite. And it's just real confusing for people.
So I'm gonna throw something out. I didn't know if any of you guys saw Ray McCormick put out a post, and Ray can be divisive or whatever else. I like Ray. Ray's got some good information, and again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. He said officers have to prove the stretch, or proof the stretch, and he got lit up on social media about that. And I'm like, that's number one in rules in the fire service. We know we can stretch well, but we have a horrible time re-stretching, right? So if we miss the stretch, we got a problem. He was getting eaten alive on social media. And
well, that's the thing. Half the people also that were eating him alive, half the people that were eating him alive are people that have Preconnects on their fucking rigs, not realizing that the FDNY
I was just going to say,
stretch off the rear.
They're stretching up the fucking rear, and actually have to fucking have a control man trying to figure out how many fucking holes, how many lengths of holes. So it's you know, even it's just, the internet is just fucking ridiculous. You got guys that are fucking popping off the mouth that are fucking, that have literally no earthly clue as to the tactics that man is personally talking about. He's talking about his personal tactics off the New York City Fire Department. You know, like fucking, yeah, you get me started on that. I saw that shit.
Sorry, Pablo.
I had to click away. I'm like, these mothers.
But see, but that's also the missing link too, right? And this is where we really struggle as a profession right now, is that still applies to where I work. It still applies to where Dave works. Even if you run Preconnects, it doesn't matter, because proving the stretch is also about, where did it go? Did it go around obstructions? Is it at the right door?
Are you going down the right hallway?
Do you have enough? Do you have enough hose to make a movement into the building you're going into? All these things matter. And so it's just that instant social media reaction, which is I'm smarter than you right now in this space because you don't know me and I don't know you. But if they would just think for a minute, like, hey, maybe, okay, we're not FDNY, right? Like my officer doesn't need to tell me if I have enough hose because I have one option on my truck and it's a Preconnect. Okay. But just like, just settle down for a minute and research it. And critical thinking is where we lack in the fire service right now, being able to adapt. And that's what I always preach is that, yes, what FDNY does not always apply to me, but I can adapt a lot of things to it. So take what's good for you and take it. And if it's not good for you, just say, okay, cool, that works for you. Like you've had a storied career. Thanks for sharing and move on with your day. It's not that hard, but people can't do that.
So, FDNY is lucky. They've got the 5-man engine, 6-man trucks. 11 miles west of them is where I lie, and we're riding with a driver, officer, and one. But we're able to throw at least 3 engines and a ladder in a battalion at every alarm activation and reported fire until we bang a second alarm. So, again, my numbers are a lot less, but we're doing the same thing with the same equipment. But we can take some of the tactics and some of the truths that are being told out there about proving the stretch, making your initial stretch. What does Andy Frederick say? Another FDNY guy. As goes the first line, so goes the fire. If that first line doesn't get to the right spot, we have a horrible time redirecting or restretching a charged hose line. Yeah. Might as well drop it and stretch again. Yeah. Because that second line is going to be much better.
And if you know where you're going. How many times do you talk to people about stretches and the first thing that comes out of their mouth has to do with the second line or the water supply or the extension? And it's like, guys, like I tell my crews here, I don't give a crap about the second line. That's for the second due company to worry about. My mission first due is our first line. And that's it. Like, what about this? What about that? I don't care. Frankly, I don't care. That is for them to figure out. And if we're doing what we're supposed to do right on the first line, there you go. Then that all goes away. You don't need the second line if you do the first line right? I mean, that's the concept to me.
So Dave, on that same note, when you guys show up, is a priority to catch a plug, or are you guys saying, hey, we could fight off tank water, let's stretch?
It's mixed. So right now, I'm going to take the whole catching a plug and comparing it to laying in, because we do truly have very few hydrants. But for us, there's like a conversation that goes, are we laying in or are we not laying in? Are we laying in or are we not laying in? And then focusing on water supply from there. The second due, it's more of like the guys are pretty good with getting lines off the truck. It's what's the priority after that first line's pulled? Is it, are we panicking because we've got 1,000 gallons of water and we don't actually know what 1,000 gallons of water can do? So we right. And then, make the priority. Oh, fuck, we got to lay in. Well, the driveway's 2,000 feet long. We have a ton of driveways that are well over 1,000 feet long. Well, now we've just screwed the pooch if we need other equipment or manpower, because now they got to spend 5 goddamn minutes walking up the fucking driveway 1,000 feet, and they're gassed before they get up there, right? And then the tanker, because we've laid 1,000 feet, that tanker that we thought our priority was water. We need to get water. It's a big fire. We can see the header. Well, it's going to take that whole tanker to fill 1,000 feet of 5-inch. Right. We're running 5-inch supply line. So now you've got even more of a delay. So I've seen that a lot out in the rural area, and not just where I'm at now, but when I started as a volunteer, you almost forget that like 1,000 gallons of water can do a lot of damage. And then if you were to drive the tanker up to the scene and simulate, okay, that's your fire hydrant that's right in front of the fucking house.
Yeah.
You just added another 3,000 gallons of water.
So this brings me to an interesting place. I don't mean to cut you off, but it kind of feeds in here, and I want everybody's opinion on this, is that I think we're all looking for a one-size-fits-all answer as the fire service right now. And so you driving up to a McMansion with 1,000 gallons of water and fire coming out of one window versus the roof, the entire second floor, and most of the first floor are two entirely different tactical situations, 100%. Right? But that's not what guys want. They want that answer on the way. Hey, what are we doing? Are we laying in? Are we going to attack? Like, sometimes I don't know is the answer, right? Like, if you have a giant column of smoke on the way, chances are like, hey, we're probably going to be opportunistic and maybe we'll get a knock on it. Otherwise, we're just going to have to be defensive.
Hey, brother, and I'll chime in on that real quick. And we literally had this conversation yesterday at my firehouse in the morning while checking off the rigs. At some point or another, you know, like especially you guys with the white shirts. I'm a tailboard fireman for whoever's wondering or listening, but especially for you guys with the white shirts, that's what you guys get paid the money to be able to throw the audible. So for us, on, you know, like as we're coming in, like I said, our bread and butter is going to be private dwellings here. Private, you know, your single family private dwellings. So if, you know, and I am, and as my department is, a very big advocate on fighting fire off the tank water. Let's get going. Let's get in there and start making an attack. Well, if your first due gives you some type of size up that sounds like this, on scene, single story private dwelling, smoke and flame showing, about 20% involved. All right, cool. Let's go to work. No worries. First due comes up. Says single story private dwelling, heavily involved, 3/4, approximately 80%. Hey man, you might want to catch a plug on that or something, because you're not going to have enough. I'm telling you right now, you're not. You know, you got to throw the audible. You're not going to have enough water in your tank to throw on that. So it's just we were talking about that yesterday. I love that. And real quick, Chief, before you get going, I see you there. Just to get back on what Dave was saying, this is why I love doing training in acquired structures. I think that if we do have some type of a training scar that we do a lot with our hose management, is that we do a lot of training in open spaces, whether it be an open burn building with no furniture, et cetera, with rooms that are essentially, you know, 15 by 20, shit like that, just an open burn building, or open parking lots and stuff like that. I have no issue with stretching in parking lots or stretching in open burn buildings. It is what it is. Training is training. Having said that, very few people understand what it's like to get into an acquired structure, get into a small hallway or a 10 by 10 room, an 11 by 12, a 9 by 10, and open up a fucking a smoothbore in there and see what that actually does. See what 150, 160 gallons a minute does to a 10 by 10 room. That tends to open up so many eyes from a nozzleman standpoint. Everybody always like, oh wow, man, that's a lot of water. Absolutely. So if you know how to manage that and understand how to cool that environment, understand how to properly apply, you can understand how to then, hey man, protect me while I search off this ant line. And now, you know, even though we have minimum staff and we got a chauffeur outside, 2 people inside, protect me with this amount of water, because you know what it could do into a hallway, into a 10 by 10 room while I search this adjacent room, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I just wanted to chime in on that, my 2 cents on that.
So jumping in on the white shirt perspective about calling the audible or saying, I don't know right now. You say, I don't know right now, you're going to lose credibility. Give me a second. I'm looking at it. I'm assessing. That's a better line for anybody that's going to throw that out there as an officer or whatever else. Hey, we're assessing them. Take a look. Let me see what we got. I see EJ raising his hand on that. But the other thing is, if you're calling an audible, understand if your crew knows what audible you're calling and if they're able to do that. I did that at a fire. I called an audible, something that we don't do all the time, and it sort of rocked the boat a little bit. And so the guys were a little bit they're like, hey, we don't do that normally. Okay. And they did it. They did their thing. But again, later on when we did an after action review, some people call that a critique also. They were like, hey, how come we did this? And I explained it then. The best part is I like giving the why, but not on the fire ground. I'll give the why at the AAR or sitting around the tailboard talk, whatever you want to do. I thought I had a lot of fire. I wanted to reset a room and then make a push from the A side. A lot of times we just go in and slug it out and beat the hell out of it. This time we had fire with extension going into the upper floors, already auto exposed. Yeah, go ahead, Pablo, jump in.
No, I love it. Because you're literally taking a page out of Captain Dustin's book down from Dade County, and you're talking about one of the most respected men in the fire service. And I think everybody in this panel, I know who I'm talking to here, are some of the most aggressive firemen on the country. But I do agree with that.
So I got called on being non-aggressive on that.
Bullshit. Don't pass by fire that is literally auto extending into another room or into another part of the building. Absolutely.
So I got called on it, and I'm like, guys, you got to understand. I said, and I was told, you're a little knowledgeable. You know, you go to these conferences. So if you're going to call an audible as an officer or even a chief, understand that they know why you're doing it and how you want it done before you call it. And that's my fault for not having trained with them on it yet. So that was a one of my training scars. Like we talk about, Pablo, I didn't train with them to have them know what I wanted done. They did it blindly, which is awesome, because that's what we expect in the fire service, to get it done without question, and then go back to doing whatever we do. But sometimes you're going to get called on that, especially if they don't understand the tactic. And there's some people, if you start using that T word, they get really jumpy, like, oh, we don't do transitional attacks. We don't hit it hard I said, we didn't hit it hard from the yard. What we did, we reset the room. Let's talk about water mapping. And then water mapping, the eyes just got like that. So
not to mention you're stopping the auto extension into the adjacent floor, into the adjacent building, etc.
You're not entraining air in there. You're stopping the spread, and you're creating a better survivability potential for anybody inside. Again, these are all things, but again, if we don't educate our people, they're not gonna, and they're not used to it. It's something that we have an issue with. And again, I'm sorry, David, that we're taking away from you a little bit, but I love to talk tactics and strategy. And again, everything comes down to the explanations and people, you know, and personalities and conversations. And that's where I think your conference is going to be huge, because you've got 3 days of classroom, 2 days of hands-on, and you're going to create a lot of time for these people to interact and network with each other and share experiences.
I appreciate
EJ,
that.
You got anything before we jump? Sorry, EJ had his hand up. I'll make sure he gets his words in here.
It's cool. I was going to kind of contradict John there, because you know John said the
EJ, we'll talk offline.
I was going to say, give them the why. Now you said don't, but I mean, in your scenario, it made sense. But if it's quick and easy, and it's not to start a debate. An example I have is, we had one recently. We have a mutual aid department that they can't get guys during the day. It's just the way it is. It's not their fault. They struggle, and that's the way it is. So Monday through Friday, 6A to 6P, our engine is automatically added to any of their dispatches. And there's a good chance during the day, because we have an available crew, we're going to beat them to their own call. And we had one of those, and I was riding the front seat, and we're rolling in, and my driver's asking me, well, which line are you going to have him pull? And I know why he was asking, because he wanted to know where to set the rig, if he was thinking if it was going to be a cross layer or a bumper line. But I said to him, I said, I don't know. I said, let's wait until we see the structure first. Like, I had no idea if we had a 50-foot lay or a 300-foot lay. So, I was able to tell him, the why quickly, so it wasn't apples to apples, but I was just thinking, if you can say the why, when people are asking questions or want to contradict you, it can squash it, hopefully. But it's just like everything else in the fire service. The answer, it depends.
There's a time and place for everything. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
I get what John's saying, though. John's saying you don't want to be the officer that every call you go on is, I don't know. Like, when you really don't know, sometimes it's warranted, but like, you should have some kind of an answer at some point on most calls you go on, like, I don't know, guys, what do you think? Let's committee it up here on our way in, from the hydrant. So, so Dave, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. So I'm curious with your conference too. This has kind of brought up a thought in my mind here as we tie all this stuff back together is, I'm curious what you hope to get out of the conference in your area, and how that impacted the people that you've chosen to come in. Like, what do you think those people will bring to your area? Like, do they have stuff in common with your area? Are they just people that, you follow a lot? I'm sure you're pretty calculated, but I'm always curious to hear the why right behind the scenes. You didn't fall on these people by accident, I'm sure.
Right. So this goes, a lot of it goes back to what John was saying earlier. And first off, I have a couple notes written down, and I'm sorry for doing a poor job, but I apologize for swearing. I have to get that off my conscience.
This isn't that show, bro. Rock on.
I know, but I still have to apologize for it. The fire service has really mess with me emotionally. So I used to never swear, and now I can't stop myself from doing it. So
Pablo's contagious. We
as-
run into this every episode.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
As long as you don't put it in your PowerPoint, all right?
Yeah.
You're
true.
good.
That's true.
I apologize
We'll
for
talk
that.
afterwards.
I know I'm going to get from the guys that watch this, in 5 weeks, from my area, they're like, oh my God, I'm definitely going to get some flack for it, but apologize first.
Wear it as a badge.
Back to what John was saying. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people say that you don't know what you don't know. And it's not just for the fire service, for any career field, anything in life. You can even take relationships, for that, or finances. I want to do this for the people that don't know what they don't know. And so there's a podcast that's out there with Coach Urban Meyer from the Ohio State football team. It's called the Focus 3 podcast. And while I was going through my fire inspector class here, the instructor had us watch a certain episode, and Coach Urban Meyer was talking about the different type of investment levels that people have in an organization. And he narrowed it down to 4. You got cynical employees, you've got compliant employees, committed employees, and compelled employees. And we could take that to translate that to the fire service. You take a department of 100 guys, just for easy math. 8 to 10 of them are going to be cynical employees. And those are the guys that just want to cause problems. They don't give a shit about anything. They're just there to collect their paycheck, but cause problems along the way. There's something keeping them up at home or at work or whatever, and they want to take it out on everybody else. Then you got 80 that are just there from 8 to 8. They do the bare minimum to get by. They don't try to cause any problems. They're just there. Then you got a handful that are really committed. They'll go 100%. They'll give it their all. They'll be invested, but they don't push that extra oomph to go beyond their 100% comfort level. They don't know what 110% is. They're afraid to get there because it's just too painful or whatever. I mean, from a physical standpoint or mental standpoint, whatever it may be, psychological. And then you got a very small amount of people within the organization that are compelled. They go 120%. Those are your Navy SEALs, right? Those are the guys that don't give up. They don't take no. And they push their body. It's either like I live or die. And I'm even in training, I'm going to push myself till I die, basically. And that's the same thing you can apply that to a fire department. This conference is not for the 8 to 10 cynical employees within a fire department. I don't care about them. And that's something that I'm starting to learn. I can't change everybody's opinions. You're going to have that in any organization that I'm at. There's just going to be shitbags, and there's shitbags across the country, even in the big cities.
They won't show up anyway, so you don't have to worry about them.
Right. This conference is for the compliant, committed, and compelled individuals within an organization, primarily the compliant and committed. The compelled people, they're already compelled. They're going to go to these fire conferences on their own dime. They're going to try to start trainings and push different tactics or strategies or whatever it is in their own organization. They don't really need the extra help, but it's awesome to see them there because they're a leader for everybody else. This is for the compliant individuals to maybe awaken their eyes, like, hey, holy shit, this is out there, and that's pretty cool. And then what you guys were saying earlier about going to these conferences and how what's after the conference is sometimes better than the conference itself, and that's the brotherhood and networking. I want that, so that's why I wanted to do social nights. So guys can get fire reignited in them. And Mark, this is kudos to you, but I love just the name of your blog and training thing, the Fire Inside, and igniting a culture and a burning desire and passion within you. That's awesome. And that's what I want to do for the compliant individual. And I want to show the committed individuals, the ones that can go to 100%, but they're afraid of going past that. Hey, here's a little bit of help to get you past that. Here's guys that are at that level. And then maybe slowly over time, I'll start to see some change within my organization. And I won't see so many young kids that are asking those questions like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And instead of them getting beat down whenever they bring a new idea, or, hey, can we go train on this? Can we go train on VES? Can we go train on split search? Hey, I don't want to see hey, shut up. Don't worry about firefighting. 80% of what we do is EMS. You're going to go to a fire maybe 3 times in your career. Don't fucking worry about it, because nobody's going to get hurt at it anyways. I don't want to see that for the young guys that are coming on in my department. I don't want to see that for the young guys that are just joining the fire service in general. We're having a hard time as it is in this area, and I'm sure it's not exclusive to the country, of guys wanting to become firemen or police officers or join the military. Nobody wants to fucking do it anymore. So by telling guys it's not cool to be a fireman anymore and not helping them along, we're not doing any service to the fire service, and we're definitely not doing any service to them. So I really want to push an agenda of showing people that there's other stuff out there. So back to the whole selection process of why I chose the certain instructors that I did. I see problems in the whole fire service triangle from a hierarchy standpoint, from fire chiefs down to the junior guy, the probationary guy that just got on the fire department. So I wanted to include a little bit for everybody. So, for example, Chief Scott Thompson, and yourself, Mark, from a culture standpoint, I wanted to pair you guys up to show the fire chiefs in our area how important culture truly is, and to stop running the organizations like a goddamn business that caters to the hospital system and treat us like the necessary and vital infrastructure a city needs, and show that if we don't try to have a positive culture within our organization, we're just going to only increase division and hate amongst life. And you can apply that to politics too. Look what's happening across the country politically. We're so divided anymore, and we don't have a solid leader maybe in the middle trying to bring us all together. I don't see that happening, and I think that's cyclical into the fire service. So then I know that there's certain guys that just need that kick in the ass to wake up. And I know, Cody Trestrail, he's going to be the guy that's going to kick you in the ass and just keep talking and spitting facts and punches to the throat. So I wanted to bring him in. I know there's guys that are really confused on building construction, and that's kind of a forgotten thing here, that that just because we don't go to so many fires, we don't need to know about the different types of building construction, or just because it is a lightweight building with truss roofs doesn't mean we still can't be aggressive. I wanted people that know a little bit about the myths and a lot about the facts come in and speak. You got Lex Shady and Chris Tobin, who are both come from different spectrums. Lex Shady's from here in Ohio, and then you got Chris Tobin, who's from St. Louis, which is a very urban city, but they've got a whole plethora of different types of buildings. And Lex Shady is probably used to lightweight construction and a little bit of brick and mortar buildings. Bring the two of them in and teach the guys here in Ohio that are scared about building construction, fighting fires, because every building's going to collapse. Every single building's going to collapse on us no matter what. Show them, hey, maybe it's not. And here's some warning signs to show you when it will. And maybe this is what you should look for to show you that it won't. And then I wanted to talk about engine company operations and the importance of being a good nozzleman. And it's okay to care about being a good nozzleman, that we should. So who do we get? We got Jay Bonifield and Kyle Ramigas, two of some of the most passionate guys out there in this underground fire service culture, really preaching and diving into the science of what it takes to be a good nozzleman, what it takes to stretch hose appropriately, and to show it. Kyle's coming from a county fire department in Texas. They've got a lot of rural areas, which relates to a good portion of Northeast Ohio. It's not just the big city guys coming to speak. Same thing with Jay out in Everett. So I really wanted to cater this to every demographic and the hierarchy of the fire service. and bring guys in specifically that I've related to, but I know that can also try to connect and relate to some of the guys here. So it's not like, oh, it's Ray McCormick. Well, it's FDNY. The FDNY guys don't know shit about fighting fire in Northeast Ohio suburbs. I don't want that. I want to try to bring people in that, yes, can relate, but also are tried and true that I've personally seen and experienced that have that capability of sharing information the appropriate way, but still punching them in the face with facts and not fears. Sorry if I belabored that.
No, dude, no, that's awesome. I think it's cool too. Something you mentioned, going back to your, the 20, 60, 20 or 10, 80, 10, whatever you want to call it. I think a cool thing about bringing something like this to your backyard is that it gives the opportunity to, get the middle, right? The guys that are kind of just showing up, doing the job. They're not maybe ate up with it, but they're not bad people either. But they kind of get a chance to shine that maybe some of the really passionate ate up guys don't get to see that side of them because, sometimes we put ourselves on a pedestal. And then on the flip side, it gives those guys a chance to see just how passionate, your hard chargers are. And now they've got a common ground between each other. It's not just me talking about the time I went to Los Angeles or them talking about, the guy that worked there before I did. Now we've been to a training together. We've sat through these classes together. We've blood, sweat, tears together. And all of a sudden now maybe we don't get along outside of work for anything else. But guess what? Now we've got that common ground. And something else you kind of alluded to at the end there is that, something I bring up in all my classes. People don't understand. Most of the people that teach in this country about the fire service are not from giant fire departments. They're usually small town people. They're usually smaller fire department people. And so that influence right there, knowing when all these people get up and give their background, they're just like you. They're not going to high rise fires every day, right? They're not showing up with 8 people on a rig every day. And so maybe that helps the buy-in, and maybe now people will understand the things you're saying a little more. Okay, well, Dave's not talking about Chicago Fire Department. He's talking about, like you said, Kyle from, this small county or this rural county, just like us, right? This guy, he's no different than me and you. He's showing up with same staffing, same equipment. So maybe I ought to listen a little more. So very cool stuff, man. Very cool.
I appreciate it. And go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go.
Yeah, like you're saying that I have forgotten too, and I'm learning this as I age and mature within the fire service. Sometimes I forget that your compliant individuals, go back to that analogy that I was using earlier, they can be intimidated at times from the guys that are the hard chargers. And that intimidation factor is just enough to keep them in that whole compliant range to where they're fearful of stepping past that because they don't want to embarrass themselves. I'm blessed with the crew that I have is very open and honest, and I have a guy on my crew currently that's admitted that like when we do mask up drills, for example, I like to think pretty good at mask ups. I'm consistently under 10 seconds now masking up. Well, when I'm going for speed myself and he's out there watching me, he's getting intimidated. So then it ends up he's spending like the entire time, and I can see it with him, and he admits to it. He's like messing with his mask straps without even putting the mask on, and he spends more time trying to adjust the mask the way he wants it than actually trying to put it on. I forget, like sometimes, like, all right, I need to slow it down and really, as an instructor, go to his level, really explain like, hey, don't be scared. I'm going to work with you. Try not to be intimidated. I'm just doing this for myself, my own personal benefit, to push myself past that. I'm going to help you now. So stop watching me. Let's work together and get you comfortable with doing this. So I'm hoping that this conference, like you were saying, share some common ground that shows that maybe the people that were afraid or fearful of being embarrassed, that when they do the hands-on classes, they're not alone. Even the guys that are hard chargers still probably have that within them. They hold themselves to very high standards, and when they fuck up, even on something so minute, they're beating themselves up immensely about it. So yeah, I just want to throw that in.
Very good. Pablo, you got some closing remarks?
man. Good stuff. You know, everybody's always learning from someone. You know, like every single time that I get around, you know, guys like Mark and John, you know, like whether they know it or not, at the time that I'm there, I'm literally picking their brains about anything. You know, whether it be tactics to how they're, you know, like how they're handling station life as officers, or just you could always learn anything from anyone at any given point in time. And you know, we got to be careful in the fire service of how we come off. Jim McCormack a handful of years ago, and I always steal this from him, and once again I'm stealing it from Jim McCormack because I thought that the analogy was beautiful. God, he put it perfectly. It says we got to be careful of how we come off. You know, like the analogy is you know, two God-fearing men, both of them go to church. You know, one of them goes to church quietly, you know, every Sunday with his family, and you know, he's doing his stuff at church, and then the other one is sitting in a street corner, you know, with a sign that says he is coming, you know, talking into a little bullhorn, you know, screaming at people that, you know, like they must repent for their sins. At some point or another, you know, you two are both giving the same message. You two are giving the same message, but one of you is scaring the fuck out of everybody, and the other one is like, oh man, I might join you in church next week. So we got to be careful in the fire service as to which message we're giving. You know, it's still, both of us are still giving the same powerful message of like, hey man, you know, like, hey, listen to this, listen to this. This is pretty cool. This is pretty cool stuff. But how you are presenting it will go a long way as to how it's going to be received. So once again, that's the analogy with the church door. That's a Jim McCormack analogy, and I probably heard that maybe about 7 or 8 years ago at Orlando Fire Conference, and fuck me if I don't take it every single chance that I get, because I thought it was just beautifully put.
That's awesome, Pablo. I find myself guilty of that, and I love going. The reason I personally love going to conferences, and maybe a selfish point of my own, is I really love learning, and I love, you know, being smacked around a little bit, and it wakes me up to how I do things in my own life and my department. I need that personally. You know, sometimes those little analogies and wake up calls slow me down, or so I might get up because I'm young and naive at times, because I'm young and immature and I don't understand emotional intelligence yet. I sort of get frustrated when I don't achieve what I want, or I see something that I think is stupid, and then I get what I want, and I need that. I love listening to you guys. For me, this is like a selfish thing. I don't want to talk about I love just sitting there listening to what you guys have to say, because I write down the notes and I try to apply. I'm going to apply a lot of these things to how I move forward within my career. So thank you for that, sharing that, because that's an awesome analogy, and I'm definitely gonna remember that as I move forward.
So I don't have any magic words like Pablo does. He's so how he comes across with everything, but again, always be the student of the trade. That's one of the biggest things. Before I became an officer, I was an instructor, and I've always loved to teach. And the one thing that I got from this fire service is I learned the fire service from my father. He was a volunteer fireman long before I was born, and he still is today. So I've loved the fact that I've been able to learn from him and then sort of bring him, and we switched positions. I stepped into the instructor role, and then he followed me into the instructor role. So always be a student of the trade, always try and make the job better. And again, it is a job, it's a profession. You might not be getting paid for it, but you're the professional that gets called. I don't know who said it, but there is no 912. It's 911. You get the call and you're going. Just to talk about, you say you do 80% mostly EMS. I might be wrong with that number, but that's a ton of buildings that you're inside, and yet you're able to look at and figure out if there's a problem, how are we going to get them out at 2 o'clock in the morning? Those are those opportunities that you can come across and say to your crew, whether you're an officer or you're a senior man or you're the junior guy, say, hey, did you see how much stuff's on the stairs? What happens if we got to get them out on the second floor at 2 o'clock in the morning? Take those opportunities. Don't let those mistraining opportunities go by. Don't let them be a mistraining opportunity. Hit them when you can. All right. Alarm issues, you're going on If you go on alarm runs or fires, hey, that's cool. But if you're going for those EMS ones, size up that building. Hey, what kind of building construction is this? What did you see on the seaside? I talk about grabbing a three-sided view, right? Oh, I see a little guy with you. That's awesome. Teach him right.
Yeah. My dad's got to take off. So back to
cool.
Dad.
I'm going to wrap up right now. But again,
no, you're fine.
It's the job is great. We just got to pass it on. And I'm really, man, you took a big bite with 5 days. I wish you the best of luck, and you got Mark on the lineup. You guys will do really well with it. So good luck with it.
I appreciate it. No, I really do. I really appreciate it. And like I said, as sometimes I get frustrated with things. I really have had quite a bit of support. You know, there's guys on here right now I just saw that are watching that are a really big part of this, and really have been pushing and trying to spread the word and message.
Okay, give him a shout out.
Yeah, Nolan Dilag, he's on here. Joe Wilkinson, Adam Stewart, Matt Dureiko, Troy Aker. These are guys that have really been helping me out and have been supportive. So it's really cool to see them all be a part of this. So
very cool, bro. So
yeah.
I want to thank you for asking me to. What's that?
So all together, we're making this happen. It's not just me. It really isn't. Like I said at the beginning, I'm just a nobody from nowhere, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today in my fire service career if it wasn't for other people, right? I think we all probably feel the same way. You know, we owe everything to. I mean, I guess we could owe a little bit to ourselves because we are the makers of our own destiny. But I personally owe a lot to everybody that's helped me out along the way and mentored me and smacked me down when I needed it. And pick me back up when I needed it as well. So
awesome, dude. Well, I love your vision. I love your humility with it all, man. You're on the right track for sure. I thank you for asking me to come out. I'm more excited about the rest of the lineup than myself, so I'm coming out there to learn too. So we're gonna close it out here. So as we do, man, just give me the basics again for anybody listening that might be interested, the dates, where they can go to sign up for it, come out and join us for 5 awesome days of firemanship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry for failing of mentioning this earlier. Once again, that goes back to me just wanting to be a student. It's in Kent, Ohio. It's called the Fire Don't Care Conference. It's in Kent, Ohio, which is in the Cleveland area. It'll be September 7th through the 11th of this year. 3 days of lectures, 2 days of hands-on training where the hands-on days repeat themselves. So if you want to do, the engine company ops one day with Gary Lane and the Brothers Battle Crew, and then day 2, you do the RIT training or vice versa, however you want to do it. The classes do repeat themselves, so you get a multitude of options, if you will. It's $150 for just the lecture series, $250 for the full conference. It's free to all Ohio fire chiefs for the very first day. So that's the day you, Mark, and Chief Scott Thompson are speaking, because I truly believe in your guys' message and I really want them to hear it. So it's free for any fire chief in Northeast Ohio and Ohio in general if they want to attend. What else can I say about? Oh, if you want to get more information, you can visit a website or any of our social medias. The website is www.ttsfiretraining.com. And on Instagram, I have a little Instagram page. It's TTS_fire. And then on Facebook, it's the Fire Don't Care Conference. I try to post information frequently on there. And as best I can, you can reach me by my cell phone, 440-856-3890. My wife hates it, but I love answering phone calls whenever anybody ever calls. So there's there. And then at Gmail too, if email works for everybody, it's ignitethefirewithin91@gmail.com.
Awesome, man. Fire Don't Care Conference, September 7th through 11th. Quite the lineup, excluding my company. I'll just be there rambling like usual, but I'm looking forward to it. I know Dave is. He's got some people. It's you don't want to miss it. So I appreciate your time, brother. I'm sorry we got kind of delayed and screwed up here. It's been a hell of a month for me and everybody else. So we'll let you get back to what's important, which is the little one right there in your hands. So thank you for your time, man, and we'll see you in September.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, guys, and it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah,
Have a good
Thanks,
night, man.
Dave.
Take care, Dave. Nice job. Good luck with the conference.
thank you.